G'day guys, Lindemann here, and here is something I've been looking forward to for quite a while. This is the Carenado Cessna 208B Caravan for X-Plane 10. This is freshly updated as of yesterday, and the update includes compatibility with 64-bit, which is what I play in. And so this is the first time, having purchased this airplane 6 or so months ago maybe, that I'm actually able to fly it, because I fly with other plugins which are 64-bit, and I really don't want to mess around with sort of switching between 32 and 64-bit and having certain things not compatible. So this is really just a first flight. I'm flying from the Netherlands to Sweden, checking the plane out for the first time. Typically carries about eight or nine people, one pilot. It's got a weather radar that you can see here. Seems to have one radio and one comms, but I'm probably just really unfamiliar with what I'm looking at here and where all the buttons are. I can say that I spent probably 5 or 10 minutes when I first loaded this up looking for the gear lever and wondering why the G key wasn't putting the gear up. There must have been some sort of lock. You can have a look at the airport over there. And I was looking and I was twisting all sorts of levers, and it wasn't helped by the fact that I didn't know it, but I was flying through a storm, so I thought something was wrong with the aircraft because the turbulence was just all over the place. And then I went outside the aircraft and saw that it has fixed landing gear, and I was in a storm. Yeah, I got past that initial error, so 1 degree of flaps for takeoff. This is a turbocharged, I think is what you call it, supercharged engine, so it's a little bit different to what I'm used to with the 210. You monitor the ITT, or the interstage temperature, for the turbo to monitor the temperature there, and we've got a whole lot of dials across the front dash, which is how you sort of monitor the engine in flight. We've also got an emergency power lever just left of the main throttle, which I thought was a bit interesting. So I've just pulled back the prop pitch slightly and setting it up for a climb, and I think I'm going up to about 12,000 feet, which might be, I'm not sure actually if that's a typical cruise altitude for this type of aircraft. I think it does, short haul feeder services and stuff like that, so I think typically you might fly a little bit lower, although this is, I think, about a 3-hour or more flight, so I typically try and climb a little bit higher. I wouldn't have thought 12,000 was particularly high, but I'm not entirely sure if it's pressurized, etc. So we'll see how I go there. I haven't read all of the manuals and everything like that. I've just kind of jumped in at this point. And you can see, looking around, I did upgrade my computer. I've gone from 8 gigawatts of RAM, or gigabytes of RAM, up to 16, and I've gone from 1600. I did test at 1866 megahertz RAM, 2000 megahertz RAM, and I went out when I got the 16 gigabytes of RAM. I forked out for 2400 megahertz RAM because I was noticing that the GPU and the CPU weren't really being fully utilized, so I thought there might have been a RAM bottleneck. I haven't really got a huge improvement in frame rate overall. And you can see here I'm just logging into Flight Simulator Economy to actually get some money for this flight, and you can see that the problem there is that it doesn't know what this plane is, so as far as it's concerned, it's not the plane that I've hired. So I'll just think about this for a second. Yeah, so I've upgraded my RAM. Not a huge frame rate improvement like max frame rate, but what I was finding through DCS and X-Plane and other 64-bit programs is that the minimum frame rate would dip a lot lower than you'd think. If you look at a town, it would try and pull a whole lot of stuff out of the RAM, and there would be a big dip in the frame rate. And I was thinking, okay. So I've noticed that instead of it dipping as I look around from 20 to 30 frames per second, it might dip down to 50 frames per second. So there's definite improvement there in averaging out your frame rate to be higher. So that's quite nice. and I've just sorted out the issue there. You can set the alias, and all you need to do is copy and paste from the website the name of your aircraft, and there we have it. So I'm cruising off now, and just adjusting my my mixture, and I'm not entirely sure how you're supposed to do that. So I've leaned it right back there. You can hear the engine kind of decays a little bit, and I'm heading off towards the northeast, heading off towards Sweden, and I think I've got about 8 or 9 passengers. The great thing about this aircraft is that it's very efficient. It's not very fast actually. You can see I'm doing less than 100 knots indicated airspeed for the climb, and it cruises, I don't know, I think I saw an indicated airspeed of about 140 knots. I think typically it would cruise at a speed of 170 knots, something like that. So fairly average speed for the size of the aircraft. It's single engine, however it's very, very efficient as far as I'm aware. So you can deliver a whole lot of passengers. I think I earned about $16,000 for this flight gross, which for a 3-hour flight I wouldn't mind earning $16,000. Just a quick look at the outside view. You can see that the detail on this particular model is awesome. The enhancements and improve things like the lighting effects, so I'll look at the lighting fairly soon, and it's a bit more efficient. I think they have blocked rendering from being drawn through parts of the airframe that you can't see through. So you know, if you've got a whole lot of clouds through the body of the aircraft, the engine won't actually draw them. Yeah, and lots of other little improvements like that. I never actually really flew the previous version of this because of the 64-bit limitation, but the sound is very, very good. I'm not sure if it's really recorded because I play in I think 7.1 sound, and there's all sorts of really cool sounds coming through of the prop, the wind, the engine, and lots of other little sounds, and it sort of makes it seem like you're in one of those sort of really noisy prop driven airplanes like this one is. So here's the lighting panel, just giving that a go. Not sure how it works. Oh, yep, it goes up, and you can see there that we've got some nice lighting effects. So we'll skip forward a little bit and get on this 3-hour flight. Alright, so I've been cruising. I've accelerated time because I don't have a lot of time in the real world. I usually try and avoid that. I'm flying through some cloud, and you can hear in cruise that I've adjusted the prop pitch. So you can hear that it's been in cruise, just flying through some cloud. That's an issue I think they've mentioned they want to fix. That kind of grey out where it envelops you all of a sudden, mysterious cloud out of nowhere. And you can see that the cloud detail is a lot higher than it used to be. I've actually turned up the cloud detail to be yeah, a wee bit more than it typically would have been in the past, just to try and stress out the GPU a wee bit. I've started my descent in towards this airfield in Sweden, and I'm going to hook around to the right and then make a left turn onto final approach for a direct in. So I'm just adjusting here the descent. You can see it's got a push button dial where you can enter in the desired altitude and the vertical speed. So it's yeah, it's a good autopilot if that's what you're looking for. It seems to fly, at least in my experience, at quite a high angle of attack. Like the wings are set up that way, or I'm not sure if it's I'm just flying too slow or something, but it seems to always be in kind of a little bit of a nose up position. Maybe my seat's just a bit low, but that's what I see. Alright, so just staring at the panel here, I've descended right down to about the altitude that I want, 3,000. But my aim is to basically hit about 1,500 above the airfield altitude at about 5 miles out to set up for an approach. You can see if I zoom in, there is the airfield off to the left. It's a visual approach, so it's going to be reasonably easy straight in after a simple left turn. So I'm just throttling back a little bit here, setting the airplane up for landing. Above my head I have the fuel tank selector. Seems that it uses both at the same time, so it makes it a little bit easier than the Centurion, the C-210. I'm flying from Europe to Australia, where periodically you have to switch over to the other tank, otherwise you'll end up with a big imbalance. But that said, this is my first flight in this thing, so I might be getting stuff horribly wrong. Alright, preparation for landing. We set the prop to full, because we're going to be flying in quite slow. It's like putting the car in first gear. You get a lot of power out of a very fine prop pitch. But that said, it is redlining, so I usually try and just pull it back slightly, just in case it's getting a bit of wear and tear. So we're starting that left turn now, just still using the autopilot to approach on it. And you can see the way I generally do this is I look up the approach heading for the runway, and then I fly around until the GPS tells me I'm pretty much on that heading. So if you don't have precision landing instruments like ILS available, then that's a really easy way of just flying around about 10 miles away from your airfield using the GPS, and then flying off so that your direct heading to it equals the approach heading. And then, you know, if you're heading straight towards the airfield at that point with a turn, then you're on target to make the approach, and you can make some fine adjustments as you get to within visual range depending on the conditions. So just making a little bit of a left turn here. We can skip this to be just in on the approach. Okay, so fast forward a little bit, you could probably hear that the engine was being adjusted, and that's just me using the engine to adjust my position on the approach, coming in a little bit high, so dropping it back to lose some altitude. You can see an active highway there just off to the left, and just adjusting for the wind. If you do come in a little bit high, then you just increase the power, which increases the lift, and if you're a little bit fast, then you can pull back, which it uses up your energy to decrease your speed. So it's all basically about adjusting the attitude of the aircraft to maintain the speed of the approach. I think the approach speed is 75 to 85 knots for this aircraft, which is kind of what I was operating with, and using those PAPI lights there, keeping 2 red and 2 white. Too many white ones, you're too high; too many red ones, and you're too low. So it's basically just a wee visual approach. As we come in on this airfield, in my first flight in the Cessna, the 208B Caravan, it's very nice to fly. I think great detail. If you're after something which is a premium aircraft, I really just fly these kind of small prop driven general aviation. I probably wouldn't go any bigger than something that carries about this many people. I think the biggest aircraft that I fly is the BAE Jetstream, which so Jetstream 32, which I think carries a few more people than this one, maybe 12, 18 people, something like that. So I certainly never fly the airliners, and I don't go above, say, the turboprop. So just taxied off here. You can see that the Cessna has the reverser, the beta I think it's called, where you can land and throw the prop into reverse, which is pretty fun for making a quick approach and saving the brakes. You don't want to land and have hot brakes, so I'm just killing the connection there, and under the yoke is the parking brake. That tells Flight Simulator Economy that I am done for the day. You can see here once again the external view. Very nice. My name's Lindemann, thanks for watching, and this is X-Plane 10.